My name's Alex Dwyer. Just graduated from Greenville Seminary. We had talked together before we were married about missions and wanting to be on the mission field as missionaries, but really feeling, for me especially, feeling the need for more training. I was a teacher, was teaching Bible, high school classes, systematics, church history, apologetics, but really feeling the need for deeper training to be able to not only counsel and give outside of class instruction, but also in class, really being able to give better instruction and help to students who needed it. So Greenville was, in a lot of ways, for us from the get-go, preparation for going to the mission field, thinking about not just wanting, like so many people we saw in the mission field, to just sort of go as you are, but really wanting to be prepared well for missionary service, wanting to be someone who could be useful to the church. We came back to the States, and we've been here now for the last 6 years in seminary, and it's just been a real blessing to our family to be built up in not only theology, but also practical living. How do you live as a Christian, as a godly husband and wife, as a man, as a woman before the Lord? One of the blessings of Greenville Seminary is that there's not only an emphasis in the classroom on study and academics, that is maintained, and there's a high requirement for making sure you're prepared for the exam, making sure you've read your whatever it is 1,000+ pages of reading. But there's also outside of class the time spent with professors in their offices, and maybe more importantly in their homes and churches. So you're able to watch professors interacting with their wives, with their kids. Dr. McGraw, for example, will often bring his boys to the seminary. And so just watching that dynamic and recognizing that pastoral ministry is practically lived out just day to day in the life of a minister, of a seminary professor. We don't simply go to minister or go to teach a class and we sort of put our life on hold for that next 6 hours. But in all of life, we are to be holistically God's people, to be Christ-like in every way, Christian in every way. That term experimental piety, which I didn't know was a good thing when I first came to Greenville. I wasn't sure you were supposed to experiment with anything as a good Reformed Presbyterian, but really wanting to make our piety, our living before the Lord, something that was an expression of what he has done in the heart of his people and in the heart of his children. And just seeing that on the faces of professors, when Dr. Van Dudewoord, we often would talk about, when you get him out of the binder and when you can really get talking about real life and why were the Jesuits, why did they run into all these issues with dealing with syncretism, but what were the benefits of their zeal for the Lord, and how could we learn from even somebody like them? Being able to, in Prolegomena, think about, well, how do we approach theology rather than just let's jump right into it like good seminary students want to. But how do we do this as worship, as unto the Lord and not unto men? I think that's something that Greenville has taught me time and time again. When I think I've learned the lesson, I'm reminded that no, God has something else for me in this next class with this next professor. They'll have a different angle of being able to think about not just church history or theology or ecclesiology, but all of the pastor's work as being done for the Lord and not for men. And maybe I can add too, just in terms of my relationship to my wife, of watching the professors interacting with their wives and their kids and being patient. And when I feel like there's a deadline looming and there are 5 papers that need to be written by next Thursday, that often is a thought in the back of my mind of recognizing what's been exemplified before me by the professors, but also what's been exemplified by Christ himself. That there were a lot of things to do in his life. He was busy while he was on earth, but he had time for children. And he says, do not forbid them, for such is the kingdom. And how often in my own heart, with my own children, I've learned that lesson of not forbidding my own children to come to me, wanting them to have access to their dad, even when it's late at night or I'm tired and it's been a long day. I still have however many pages of reading to do. That's been a good lesson to learn for ministry. We, from the very beginning, have been interested in missions. We came to seminary with the eye to going out specifically to Southeast Asia. So we leave with that same passion, and maybe even more so because of classes and because of conversations with professors. We leave with more of a pinpointed focus on church ministry, especially, and on the local church, wanting to be a meaningful help, not only to our denomination as a whole, but also specifically to particular churches, whether that's pulpit supply, whether that's ministering the sacraments, whether that's growing up elders and deacons, training them to serve in the church also, or even ministering to the younger kids through Sunday schools, through whatever means the Lord calls us. So missions is the big picture for us, but the practical realities have really begun to come into focus for us as we've been in seminary together. The Lord has been calling me, especially as a teaching elder, Lord willing, ordained in the next few months, to serve as a recruiter for our new team that we're hoping to build. And we are really hoping that role, that position will be an encouragement, not just to those in the region, but to churches back in the U.S., that they'll be able to think broader about the Great Commission. What does every tongue, every tribe, every nation look like? And so for us, that connection between missions and the local church has grown not only in our understanding, but also our passion to share with other churches, to say we want to be for ourselves ministering in a local context where missions and reaching out to the unreached is common. But we also want to be thinking about mobilizing the U.S. church, where they're partnering with churches across an entire globe, where now we can hopefully send elders and deacons to train in the U.S. or pastors to train in the U.S. or bring pastors from the U.S. to catch a vision for what the Lord is doing abroad, sending short-term teams to help. So all of that is a big part of what the Lord is starting to build in our own hearts to encourage us, but also to give us a passion to minister to those who are unreached, and especially to Muslims in unreached parts of the world.